All right, so get this. We're diving into the Sony hack of 2014.
Oh, yeah.
And I gotta say, going through all this research you sent over, it's wild. Like straight out of Hollywood.
Well, it makes sense, right? I mean, a whole movie studio was the target.
True that. Okay, so for anyone who needs a refresher, picture this November 2014 normal Monday at Sony Pictures. People are getting coffee, checking emails, the drill. And then boom, blood red skeleton on everyone's screen. Message from some group calling themselves Guardians of Peace.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Saying they've got all of Sony's data.
And it wasn't just like a little bit, right?
Oh, no.
We're talking terabytes of stuff, unreleased films, scripts, private emails, salaries, social security numbers, the whole works. They were in the system for weeks just grabbing everything.
It's crazy how long they went undetected. What were they waiting for?
Right. Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
They didn't just want to, mess things up or embarrass Sony. They had a very specific demand cancel the interview.
Wait, really? That movie? The comedy about assassinating Kim Jong-un?
That's the one.
Seems extreme, right?
Right.
Holding all that data hostage over a comedy.
It sparked a huge debate. Should Sony give in? Some said, no way, it sets a bad precedent.
Yeah, like giving hackers that power.
Exactly.
Right.
Others were worried about safety. The Guardians of Peace were starting to make threats.
Threats? Like against theaters showing the film.
Yeah, it got pretty intense, so Sony had a tough choice.
So what'd they do? Did they cave?
With all those threats and pressure from theaters, they pulled the interview from its Christmas release.
Wow, so they gave in.
It was a huge call, you know, freedom of expression versus security.
Big questions.
Yeah.
So then what? Did they catch those Guardians of Peace?
Well, that's where things get even more intriguing.
Lay it on me.
Suspicion fell on North Korea almost immediately.
Makes sense, I guess, given the movie's plot.
Right. The U.S. government cybersecurity experts, they all got involved and found some pretty interesting links.
To
another group called Lazarus.
Lazarus. Wait, weren't they behind some other big hacks?
Exactly. State-sponsored hackers out of North Korea.
Wow.
And their style, the tools they used, it all lined up with the Sony hack.
So we've got motive, the film mocking Kim Jong-un.
Yep.
And a suspect with the skills to pull it off. Did North Korea ever fess up?
Officially? No, vehemently denied it.
Of course.
But here's the thing. They actually praised the hack.
No way. Seriously.
Called it a righteous deed.
Talk about playing both sides.
Right. But even with the FBI pointing the finger at them, no hard proof ever came out publicly.
Huh. So the mystery continues.
It does. The true identity of the Guardians of Peace. Who knows?
It's amazing how a hacked movie studio turns into global intrigue.
You said it.
And what gets me is even almost a decade later.
Yeah.
It's still so relevant today.
It's like a snapshot of those digital fears we had back then.
Fears that have only gotten worse, right?
You got it.
Back then, we knew hacking was a thing, but this was different. People's emails, their lives out in the open.
It hit home.
Exactly. Suddenly, cybersecurity wasn't just for IT guys,
It became real for everyone.
So did we learn from it? Did everyone become security experts overnight?
Ha! I wish. But it was a wake-up call for sure.
Yeah.
Organizations had to take it seriously. More investment in security, new rules.
Better safe than sorry.
For sure. But here's the catch. Those hackers, they're getting smarter all the time.
Makes you wonder, can we even keep up?
It's a constant battle, for sure. But the big takeaway from Sony, cybersecurity can't be an afterthought. It has to be built into everything we do online.
Makes sense. But what about us regular folks? Most of us aren't tech geniuses.
Right. But there's actually a lot you can do to protect yourself.
Like what?
First, be aware. Every click you make online matters. Think before you click those links,
Especially if they look sketchy.
Exactly. And be careful what you share on social media.
Right, like our online identity is just as important as our real one.
Exactly. And use strong passwords everywhere. Turn on that two-factor authentication whenever you can.
Makes sense. It's like an extra lock on the door.
Exactly. And keep your software up to date. Those updates have important security fixes.
So, common sense and staying informed.
Exactly. We can all make a difference.
It's good to know we have some control. So the Sony hack, it was a mess for sure, but it taught us a lot.
It did. It showed us that in this digital age, security and freedom, they go hand in hand.
And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Sony hack.
Absolutely.
We'll be back soon to explore more fascinating stories from the digital world.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe online.
See you next time.
So yeah, after that, hack things at Sony, well, they were a mess.
Makes sense. Total PR nightmare, right? Containing the damage, finding out who did it, reassuring everyone.
It was. And on top of that, they had to deal with the movie being pulled and all the talk about North Korea.
Yeah, it's like something out of a spy film.
So what was the damage, I mean, financially and like their reputation?
Oh, it was huge. Estimates say over $35 million in losses.
Whoa, that's a lot.
Investigating, rebuilding their systems, legal stuff, and of course, the interview not coming out.
Ouch. But it wasn't just about the money, right? This had to impact all of Hollywood.
Oh, absolutely. It was a wake-up call for the whole industry.
Like everyone suddenly realizing they were vulnerable too?
Exactly. Cybersecurity went from like a side issue to top priority.
It's wild how one event can change everything.
Yeah.
So other studios started taking security more seriously.
Definitely. They had to reassess everything, invest in better tech, train their people.
Makes sense. No one wants to be the next Sony. But beyond Hollywood, this whole thing brought up some big questions.
It did. About freedom of expression, in the digital age.
Right, like can hackers actually control what we see?
That was the fear. Could they silence people or ideas they don't like?
It's kind of scary when you think about it. A direct attack on free speech.
It's a tough one. On one hand, you want to protect free speech and prevent censorship. But you also have to consider the real threats, the potential for violence.
True. It's a balancing act. Security versus free speech. Tough call.
It is, and the Sony hack really brought that to the forefront.
What always struck me was how it showed that the online world and the real world, they're not so separate anymore.
Yeah, we tend to think of cyberspace as this, separate thing.
Right, like it's all just happening on screens.
But the Sony hack showed how actions online can have real consequences.
People's lives were turned upside down.
Exactly. And that's the thing about cybersecurity. Yeah. It's not just about data, it's about people. The human impact of a breach.
That's a good point. So after all this, did things actually change? Did we learn our lesson?
Well, maybe not perfectly, but it was a wake-up call for sure.
Oh.
Organizations started taking it more seriously, investing in security, new rules being created.
So like a global shift in how we think about cybersecurity.
You could say that, but the thing is those hackers are always evolving too.
True. So how do we keep up?
It's a tough one. But the Sony hack showed us cybersecurity can't be an afterthought. It has to be built into everything we do online.
I see. So it's not just about having the latest software.
It's about creating a culture of awareness, educating people, empowering them.
Makes sense. But most of us aren't tech experts. What can we do to stay safe?
Well, there's actually a lot of simple things that can make a big difference.
Like what? Give us the inside scoop.
First, just be aware. Every click you make online, it has consequences.
Yeah, I never really thought about it like that.
Think before you click those links, especially if they look a little off.
Good advice.
What else?
Be careful what you share online on social media.
Right, like our online identity is just as important as our real one.
Exactly, and strong passwords everywhere, different passwords for every account.
Okay, got it. Anything else?
Turn on that two-factor authentication whenever you can.
Makes sense. Another layer of protection.
And keep your software up to date. You know those updates?
Yeah, the ones we always ignore. Those often have important security fixes.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So basically, common sense and staying informed.
Exactly. We can all do our part to stay safe online.
It's encouraging to know we have some control on all this.
Yeah, I do. And the Sony hack, for all the trouble it caused, it was a reminder that security and freedom online, they go hand in hand.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
We'll be back after a short break to talk about what the Sony hack means for our future.
So we're back, and it's amazing how much this one hack, back in 2014, still resonates today.
It really is. It was like this perfect storm, right? Captured all those anxieties we were just starting to feel about the digital world.
Exactly. Back then, hacking felt different, more personal. People's emails, their salaries, their social security numbers, all out there.
Yeah, it wasn't just about data anymore. It was about real people's lives being turned upside down.
And that's the thing I keep coming back to. Cybersecurity isn't just about protecting ones and zeros. It's about protecting people.
Absolutely. And I think the Sony hack really drove that point home, that human element behind every data breach. So did things actually change? Did we all become cybersecurity experts overnight?
Well, maybe not experts, but the Sony hack definitely served as a wake-up call.
Okay.
Companies had to take it more seriously, investing in new tech, developing better security practices.
So it was like a global shift in how we think about cybersecurity.
Yeah, you could say that. But of course, the hackers are always evolving, too. Right? They're always one step ahead.
Makes you wonder, can we even keep up with them?
It's a constant challenge. But the big takeaway from Sony, cybersecurity can't be an afterthought.
Yeah.
It has to be built into everything we do online.
From the ground up. So it's not just about buying the fanciest software.
It's about creating a culture of awareness, educating people, giving them the tools to protect themselves.
Okay, I see. But for most of us, we're not tech wizards. What can we do to stay safe in this crazy digital world?
Well, there's actually a lot you can do. Even small things can make a big difference.
Like what? Spill the secrets.
The first thing is just be aware.
Yeah.
Everything you do online has consequences.
Yeah, I never really thought about it like that before.
Think before you click those links, especially if they look suspicious.
Good advice.
What else? Be careful what you share on social media. Think about your digital footprint, right? It's just as important as your real-world identity.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Protect your data, like you protect your belongings.
Exactly, and strong passwords everywhere. I can't stress that enough. Use different passwords for all your accounts.
Got it. Password manager. It is. What else?
Turn on that two-factor authentication whenever you can.
Makes sense. Like adding an extra lock on the door.
Exactly. And keep your software up to date. You know those updates we all love to ignore?
Oh, yeah, those.
Well, they often contain important security patches that can help protect you.
Good to know. So basically it comes down to common sense and staying informed.
You got it. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. We all have a role to play in creating a safer digital world.
It's empowering to know that we have some control over our own security.
We do. And the Sony hack, for all the trouble it caused it, was a valuable lesson.
Oh, sure.
It showed us that in the digital age, security and freedom, they go hand in hand.
And on that note, thanks for joining us today for this deep dive into the Sony hack.
It's been a pleasure.
It's amazing how much there is to uncover in this one event. We could probably talk about this for hours.
Oh, definitely. We've only scratched the surface here.
So much more to explore in the world of cybersecurity and digital freedom.
Absolutely. It's a constantly evolving landscape.
Well, we'll be back soon to tackle more of these fascinating stories from the digital world.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe online.